Good evening and welcome to a D-Day special and welcome to another exciting show. Tonight we have Survival Steve, as you can see. We've got Patrick, we did a very, very interesting show on Holy Land Radio yesterday. Please go over to Holy Land Radio. I believe you're broadcasting on Telegram and where else, Patrick?
Well, holylandradio.com. Just go there and you can listen.
That's brilliant. And we've got a chap called Reconciliation. Who's he? Hello there, everybody. That's Patrick.
That's me, testing out the chat.
And Sam is in. Good evening. And so is Blu-ray. And for some unknown reason, the advert for manure hasn't started yet. So we don't know Food for Thought Radio.
Wake up your mind, fill up your day. Smart little vibes that brighten your way. You're listening to Food for Thought Radio. You're at FTRadio.com. Club it, woo, oink!
Order, and leave.
This is the best political satire broadcast in the universe. You are listening to Fockham Hall with Eric Von Essex.
Now, I said to the boys in the band beforehand, I said, look, make it snappy, do it very fast. And they've done it very fast. So I think that is right. I think I've covered the balls up quite carefully there, haven't I? What on earth was going on there? I'll have to have a word with Paul about that. But anyway, welcome to the show. And as I say, tonight, yesterday, 6th of June, this is the 7th of June, 2026. And yesterday, which was the 6th of June, 2026, was the 82nd anniversary of D-Day, which was one of the largest amphibious assaults in history. And my dear old dad was amongst the first assault wave who landed. And I hit the beach on Jig Section Gold Beach. And the first assault wave is always the assault wave that they expect to get wiped out. And their job is to gain a foothold for following troops. So that's what happened. But Christine, who's not feeling too well at the moment. So let's send some healing thoughts to Christine. And let's got to Scotland and send some healing thoughts to her. She's sent in a fantastic poem which she wrote. And I'm just about to show that now. And if I've pressed all the right buttons, let's hope this works. If it doesn't, sorry, Christine. Right, here we go.
Hi, Eric. Nice to be part of this very special program about the war. I've written a poem, and it's called The Edge of Eternity. The reason I wrote it is that I thought of all the fine young men of both wars coming from every corner of the land, really the flower of our nation, honest and brave and ready to fight for everything that they believed in and everything that they held dear, which was their family and their freedoms and their way of life. It's called The Edge of Eternity, and I'll start straight away. Okay. Marching steadfastly through the mists of time, rank upon rank of the fallen, shadow shrouded and weary, hungry for peace, thirsty for our prayers. From verdant valleys and heather-clad hills they came, exchanging beauty for blood-soaked earth. On the edge of eternity, forget them not, they gave us the future.
Thank you very much. And that was Christine. And thanks, Christine. And now I've got to get the where are we? I think we got a bit of trouble with the screen. Here we go. And what did I? Oh, that was it. That was it. This is how I did this before. That was it. And thank you very much, Christine, for sending that in. And we recorded that. Who was it now? I've forgotten. I think it was no, it wasn't last night, was it? I think it was the day before. And wish you well. Thank you very much for that poem. Very moving, very touching. And let's all wish Christine well. She's not very well at the moment. So there we go. Let's have a quick look in chat as well whilst we're at it and see who we've got tonight. We've got Mark. Hello, Mark. Well, we got, as I say, Patrick, because you're already in the studio. Sam, Blu-ray, Mark, Mike, Pink Planet, Matilda, Blu-ray, hang on, it's on the wrong speed. Yes, I know the intro's in the wrong speed. I wondered who's going to notice that first. See, it's a observation quiz. I think I got away with it. Should be a good show. I'm here sucking on my knickknacks. Are you really? Well, what you do in your private life is entirely up to you. Here we go. And Alice Gorgeous says, World War III silent weapons. Aunt Sally, hello Aunt Sally, welcome. Matilda, yes, exactly. Here we go. So thank you very much, everybody. Now tonight, I could play. I've got a recording of my father. I have played that before, so I don't want to gild the lily. And hang on, what have I got here? Food for Thought Radio. Oh yes, we're live on Food for Thought Radio as well. And we're live on Rumble, YouTube, and where else are we live on? Holyland Radio, Holyland Radio FM, and the website again, was it Holyland?
Radio.com.
Radio.com, the place to be. So, and if you want to hear the full story of what my dad went through, if you go over to, after the show, of course, if you go on to holylandradio.com. I was on with Patrick yesterday, 3 o'clock his time, was it 8 o'clock our time? And I we did what was it? I don't know how long we went on for.
We went for about 50 some minutes.
Yeah, and
just under an hour.
And as I say, Patrick's a first class interviewer, so I was very pleased. So thank you very much, Patrick. So after the show, if you'd like to go over to
holylandradio.com.
And there as well. See, so there we go. holylandradio.com. You'll be able to hear the full interview. Now, let's look at D-Day. And I did a poll on Telegram, and let's have a quick look at that poll. And on it, I said, if I can find it, where is it? Here we are. And I said, if the Allies hitting the Normandy beaches on the 6th of June 1944 could have seen into the future of how Britain and other Allied countries would turn out, would they have carried on fighting? Yes, or given up? No. And the answers to the yes, they would have carried on fighting. 15% would have said yes, did say yes on the poll, and 88% said no, they would have given up. And that's exactly what my father said. If they'd have known how this country was going to turn out, they would have thrown their rifles down and given up. And I've actually got the recording, if you want to hear it, of him saying that. So if anybody wants to hear him saying that, he said that. So there we go. But I don't want to, because I played it before on the show. Now, Alice Gorgeous says, not sure why, but I'm completely shattered. Can't barely keep my eyes open. Yeah, I do have that effect on people, Alan. Some of you felt like this last week. Yeah, I felt like that as well. You know, don't know. It's
Instead of
weather.
a backhanded compliment, is that a backhanded insult?
I have been known to cure insomniacs. Oh no, it's not in the game. But going back to what we were saying about the World War II generation throwing their rifles down, and that's what my dad said they would have thrown their rifles down and given up if they'd have known how it would turn out. And David Irving, the author, said that if the veterans had known how this country turned out, they wouldn't have gone, was it 50 yards up the beach or something like that? So that's something. So
Isn't that what you told me that those troops from India did in Sicily? They deserted. They said
no,
"We
it
had
wasn't
enough
from
of this."
India. No, it wasn't the troops from India. What had actually happened is that let's sort of get the timeline right. Okay,
Sure.
there was a
sure.
siege. There was the siege of Malta. Okay, first of all, that was started about 1940 to about 1942, 41, 42, and then after that, what happened with the siege of Malta is troops in India, British troops in India, when people joined the army in the 1930s and they were sent to India, they were sent there for 7 years. They didn't see their families for 7 years. That they couldn't come back. That was it. Just 7 years they were over in India for. And they were on a ship, troop ship, coming home to see their wives and family and whatever. And as they were getting close to Malta, war was declared, and they were told to stop off in Malta. So they were all keen to see their families. They hadn't seen them for 7 years, and the British Army, who were in India, because remember that was part of the British Empire at that time, had to stop off at Malta. And when my dad was conscripted, he was posted to Malta, and when his ship came in, he was the regular army met the conscripts army. So, well, I wouldn't say conscript army, but the conscripts. And my dad said they made them very, very welcome because I knew the poor sods were just conscripted from, or drafted, as you say in America, from civilian life. And he said when they walked into the barrack rooms, they had tea waiting for them and things like that. They're very nice. And because they're old sweats, you see. So what happened is they went through the full siege of Malta where they almost starved to death, and many of them died of malnutrition. And then they were told that they were going on board troop ships to go home to Blighty, to Great Britain. But for some unknown reason, the ships were going in the wrong direction. And they landed in Egypt instead for intensive training on the Great Bitter Lake there for the invasion of Sicily, Operation Corgi. So the conscripts and the troops that hadn't seen their families for 7 years because they've been in India were conned. So they then went on the invasion of Sicily, and they were told that when Sicily is taken, they will be going on a troop ship home. And they had this terrific, awful battle in Regabuto Bridge, Regabuto. Sorry, I pronounced it wrong in Italian. They got it wrong, the silly sod. But it's Regabuto Ridge. And it was a massive, huge casualty rate. And that's where my dad was transferred into the frontline intelligence section because they had such a high casualty rate. And that's where he met a chappie who he then met his sister later on in the war. And his sister married my dad, and that chappie who is his friend was my uncle, and that's it. Anyway, we go on. And what happened is they all thought as from Sicily, they're all going to go home. And then Montgomery came along and said, "Okay, chaps, I bet you'll be delighted to know we've got another little job for you." And people started booing him, swearing. I'm not sure whether they threw stuff at him. And that was the invasion of Italy. And this is something you won't find in the history books, but it's 100% true. On the invasion of Italy, the British troops went in half strength because half of them had deserted because they'd had enough. That's true. That's it. And then they went 100 miles up the coast of Italy, and they were taken off, got on troop ships, and then got back to Blighty eventually for the D-Day, and that is the invasion of France. So I hope I've cleared that up. Have I cleared that up, Patrick?
I think so. So they didn't really desert in Sicily. They went to Italy. I take it.
From Sicily, they went to Italy. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So the deserters, where did they end up on the peninsula?
We don't-
Or you
They don't know what. They don't know. They were in Sicily. They deserted in Sicily. And my
Okay.
dad says in his book he doesn't know what happened to the deserters. There's a lot of them, though. A heck of a lot of them. They did hear after the war that the authorities turned a blind eye to them. He did hear that. So, Now, somebody said, what was it now? But Eric, you told us that they would have got shot if they had not got off the boats. Right. You're getting muddled up. What I said was that on D-Day, and I was just talking about the invasion of Italy, they had penal units. Okay. My dad didn't see these penal units. We only found out about that afterwards, and I found this out from an author that was looking into it, and they were chained up on the side of the landing craft, and just before the front ramp came down, the chains were released, and they pulled these chains through, and there was somebody with a machine gun at the back of the landing craft, so that if any of them turned back, they would have been machine gunned, so they had to go forward. And that was the penal units, which the Allies had. So that's where you're getting muddled up, Pink Planet. But no, not with the ordinary regiments. They wouldn't have got, they wouldn't have got shot, because the chaps on the landing craft, they wanted to get off the beach as quickly as humanly possible, because it was the bullets were flying everywhere. So they were revving the engines to turn around and go back to the mothership. They didn't want to hang around, So I hope that's cleared that up. Now, what was I saying there? Yes. So that's why the 50th Division, 50th Northumbrian Division, and guess who's up in Northumbria area? Tyneside. Well, that sort of area, isn't it? Tyneside. Is Steve, because my dad was in Newcastle, and my dad was in the 50th Northumbrian Division, even though he was from London. Second Devons, and that sounds a bit weird because Devon's the other end of England, but that's the way it worked out. And the 40th Northumbrian Division, we found out afterwards that Montgomery, who was the General Montgomery, expected to have them completely wiped out, and that's why most of them were patched up wounded, who landed on the beach on D-Day. And one chap only had one eye, and there was lots of them just literally patched up because they and also their medical books were forged. Their pay books were forged, and it said that they were all A1 fit men. They never had a medical. They had to give them pay books in, and they got new pay books which all said that they're A1 fit. So authors who are writing about it, who don't know anything about it, would say, "Oh, they were A1 fit men," because it says it here, but they don't know the reality of it. They weren't. So that's a little bit you won't find in the history books. So
and these doctors, it's like the COVID thing. They have so much power over people's labor and who can work and who can't work and who can draw a pension and who can't. It's absolutely disgusting when you look at it.
Well, after the war, I won't go into it too deeply. I call it the government-directed pensions fraud. And my dad was diddled out of his pension because they said that his war wounds, and this is 100% true, his war wounds and shell shock was caused by his childhood. And they gave people all manner of excuses to not pay the pension out, and his pension was stopped, his disability pension. And they found, and in the 80s, the government announced that they'd actually stopped the pensions incorrectly, and they can reapply. And my dad applied, and they lost all his details, so he had to reapply again. And the problems he had reapplying. And that was in the 80s. That's when the veterans were in their 70s and 80s. So most of them had died off. So nice government, isn't they? So what do you think, Steve? I think that proves how marvellous governments are, doesn't it? I don't think.
Yeah, that's testament to what government is, what there always will be, what they always were, what we should now appreciate now, 82 years after D-Days, we need to learn lessons from history. We need to learn, that war inevitably is obviously a big sham. All of it's a sham. World War One, World War Two.
Yeah.
This current generational, you could say, fifth generational warfare that we are currently experiencing. Ultimately, warfare is always about gaining control over the people. It's not about defeating nations. I mean, some of it's about stealing and profiteering from resources from other tribes or other groups from other foreign nations. But ultimately, it's all about steering nations into whatever the long-term goals or visions are. But what is government? Government is, as your father kind of learned, they're a bunch of lying, thieving scumbags, and there always will be.
Spot on. Pink Planet's come up with an interesting one here, and this is a very difficult one to answer without being banned. Now, we're not goose-stepping neo-dooflops and anything like that, and we're not antiseptic or anything like that. If we had not won, well, we didn't win, war, apart from speaking German, what do you think UK would look like now? Would small boats of illegals come in, etc.? Well, that's a $64,000 question, isn't it? And this idea that we'd all have to be speaking German is, excuse my language, crap. Because wherever Germany went, they didn't impose their language on other countries, as far as I know. Do you know anything more about that, Patrick? I don't think that Germany did impose a language on other countries.
No, but here in America, we had a lot of German immigrants, and it culturally, between the English and the English speakers and the German speakers in America, there was a certain sort of cultural battle between the two for dominance in the schooling, and Germany eventually lost out as time went on in the in the 1800s into the early 20th century. So we're an English speaking dominantly country at the moment, and it could have turned toward German at any certain point. And
one vote, wasn't it?
I don't know if that would have been all that bad either, though. Between English and German, why not? We could have a little bit of both.
We could do, but do you know, I heard there is one vote whether America was going to speak German or English, and it was one vote that decided whether we're going to. Then you spoke English.
Yeah, I don't know too much about that story, but I think I've heard it before, though.
But you still drive on the wrong side of the road. You see, we drive on the correct side. You drive on the incorrect side. You see, I just thought. But did you know
Continental.
that? I think it was before. Was it 1908 that America did drive on the same side of the road as we did? Because the early Model T Fords had the steering wheel on the side of the same side as we did, and they changed it. But because in Ireland they changed over, didn't they? And they said buses and lorries will do it on Wednesday, and the cars will do it on the day after. No, I'm only joking. Oh yes, I think we'll do that, Mick. Oh, there's a bloody bus coming towards me. Now,
without wanting to sound disrespectful for the point that's made, but I don't want to use the term naive, but I think in a sense that the winners of war, that is a bit of a naive vision, that there is never going to be a winner in war. It's always pre-formulated in order to obtain whatever resource or a political change that is required. That is the aim of war. It's not what the history or the cultural narrative will tell us. It's not going to be Germany won, the Allies won, the Axis powers won. It's never about that. That whole narrative needs to be properly understood and addressed. It wasn't about the Allied versus the Axis. It was about the change to the dialectic, if you like. It was imposing the new world order of that generation at that time, which involved a worldwide effect, just as we are experiencing a similar level to that worldwide effect now, with a different formulation of military might using psychological techniques. 82 years ago, it was using kinetic power. And of course, as I said earlier, the casualties of war is not necessarily nation versus nation. It's about political dominance over cultures. That's what was essentially Second World War. So Germany, for example, probably had zero intention to ever invade and to dominate the UK. I don't think that was an intention. I very much doubt it was ever argued for that. And equally, when the people who are funding and formulating these warfare campaigns get their heads together and come up with whatever predetermined solution that they require, when they've achieved that, then they can start withdrawing from that warfare, just like they've done in modern warfares, even ones that I've been involved with. It's not about winning and losing. It's about, once we've got enough, I don't know whether it's resources, wealth, or political sway, then we'll withdraw, and then that's the end of the confrontation, if you like. Warfare's a pantomime. Second World War was no different. It's a pantomime, a political pantomime.
Well, it's really not who's won, but who's left, isn't it? Really, when you think about it, because that's it, really. And when you look at the, I think they've got a lot more. Must have done sophisticated now. You would know more about this, obviously, Steve. But I think the people with post-traumatic stress disorder, as they call it now, shell shock. I think this. I always have feel sorry for seeing these people that are homeless, and a lot of men that are on the streets are ex-military. And I think there's one at Hoddesdon. I always give him a few bob when I see him, a few bucks, as you'd say in America. But no, that question's an interesting one. If we had not have won, well, we didn't win. Exactly. That's the thing. We didn't win. We did not win Second World War, because if you take a step back and take all the propaganda away and strip all the rest of what was it Sefton Delmar was saying, who was the propagandist, who you don't hear much about. You always hear about Goebbels, but you don't hear about Sefton Delmar, and his propaganda is still believed to this day. For example, I was saying last night, there's film of D-Day, and they show you French women with Union Jack flags hugging troops, and you see these beautifully clean, there's a bit of mud underneath these Matador trucks. I think they're Matadors that they used during World War II, and troops that are cleanly shaved coming forward and smiling and all that. They hadn't actually come across, they haven't been in battle as such. And apparently that was filmed in Herefordshire in 1943 before D-Day, and it was put out as propaganda, and people still believe it today. Because you've got to ask a few questions. Where did the French ladies get the Union Jacks from? They said, they've been storing them throughout the war. So you think about it. Germany's invading France, and they think, I think I'll go out and buy a Union Jack flag and store it in my wardrobe. No. Or under the floorboards. I don't think so, somehow. It is the shit of the bull.
That's one very good thing that comes out of warfare, apart from new advances to medical technology for all the injuries they've had to deal with. And I've got quite a comprehensive knowledge on some of the advances of medical treatment through the various campaigns I've been involved with. But apart from that, propaganda is one of the main elements of warfare that works very, very well. Even to the point, even today, we're still, largely debating the pros and cons of World War II's, or the particulars of it. But necessarily, government always win wars. The people never win. The people are always at the front end, and even those who aren't involved in the fight, and they're going to lose out, whether it's through taxation, through theft, through legitimized theft, which is what pays for wars. The innocent everyday folk like you and I who are funding these campaigns for the ruling elite, bearing in mind the ruling elite, they're satanically minded psychopaths. This is who we are funding in order to generate warfare. And the fact that it was 82 years ago makes no difference. It was the same satanic mindset that prevailed at the time, and that still dominated the the generations of young men who went off, died, and got injured fighting unnecessarily in order to change the political situation for these satanically minded psychopaths. The question should be, when are we going to learn from this, and when are we going to change? Because that's what needs to happen. We need a cultural revolution. We need a mindset, a paradigm shift aiming towards a morally aligned understanding, so this doesn't happen again.
I agree with you. I agree with you there. Now, Pink Planet has gone on to say, would UK be better? I can't answer that on this show, I'm afraid. Patrick, what do you think, mate?
Would the UK be better if what?
Well, he is saying if we had not won Pink Planet's war, apart from speaking German, what do you think the UK? Well, let's say the Allies, shall we, or the West? I think that would probably.
The question is like,
would the West be better?
Well, what do you win when you win a war? That I guess that's the question. Like, who benefits? Chi bono? Did the American people benefit over the German people? Maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if we'd be better off or worse off. I mean,
I would say that
I'd say the best thing would have been not to fight at all. Negotiate.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I think
it's a great.
I think it's a great point, but I don't actually think there'd be any significant change to the let's just say the day-to-day functioning of the UK, or what would see differently. I mean, you could argue the toss. Would we now be speaking German? If, let's just say, for whatever reason, the Germans won what would be classed as winning the war, would we be speaking German? I think it's largely irrelevant, because what we would be doing is we'd still be caving in and bowing down to an illegitimate form of authority, who would be called the government, whether it's a German aligned government or British aligned government. It's still the same entity. They still thieve and thwart violence upon others, instigate war, thieve resources from other countries, usually third world nations, or plunder and achieve whatever the New World Order effects are through forms of violence and warfare. And until people learn these lessons, that actually there's no legitimate authority with any government, whether it's German government, British government, we need to stop being naive about the let's just say the nostalgic sort of propaganda that we've all been infused with the documentaries and films and Hollywood's tales of what happened in World War II. It's all based upon violence from satanically minded psychopaths. It always was, it always will be, until we change our understanding and become more morally aligned, then this kind of thing will always continue. And we've seen that continue in the last 6 years. It's just a different level of let's say effects. It's psychological effects as opposed to kinetic effects. But the ultimate you could say the ultimate outcome of that is let's just say deaths and injuries, through different means, and also political augmentation.
And you have to also ask who profits from the government. Who is the greatest beneficiary of the government as it stands? Those
Industry.
People are usually the problem.
Yeah,
that's right. But you see, the thing is that Alex Gorgeous says the boats will always come here. No, they won't. Immigration is a multi-layer plan. It is a multi-layer plan, but the fact of the matter is that it's a big problem, big subject, and I think we can sum that up, is that usury has destroyed their countries where they've got nothing. So you can't blame people for coming here for a better life, where they should be building up their own countries to make their own countries a fantastic place to live in. And that's the thing. People should be where they want to be, not where they're forced to be economically. And if someone always wanted to come to England and likes our culture, that fine, I ain't got a problem with that. But if they're forced to come here because of economics, and it's done deliberately because of an agenda, that's what I'm totally against. So I'm not,
and it's a race to the bottom with cheap labor.
precisely.
And it is an agenda, a depopulation of the native. It's a colonization of the native population by depopulating the natives, and then replacing them with cheap labor from
That's
abroad.
it.
It's
And
another
we're all
effect of,
slaves.
it's another effect of modern day warfare. And like I say, what we saw during let's say World War One, World War Two era was kinetic based generalized warfare. What we're seeing nowadays is psychological cognitive warfare. That's cognitive warfare. A lot of people don't even understand what that is, or maybe never heard of it. But obviously, it implies an impairment towards
Thinking.
cognitive function. And how do they do it? Well, a multi-layered technique, such as propaganda on TV, manipulation of the news and associated media. Fear is another great one. But in addition to this, because we're talking about what could be called as asymmetric warfare, where it's kind of a multi-layered dimension to the effects that they're trying to achieve through different means that we're not that familiar with, because we're used to, let's just say the average person is used to warfare being bombs and bullets and aeroplanes and tanks and cannons and this, that, and the other. No, that was how warfare used to be conducted. Nowadays, they can get the same results just by manipulating mindsets, i.e., put a load of, let's just say, a fake health narrative on the news and keep repeating it and repeating it, and then get a few celebrities to endorse it. And before you know it, that then becomes the fictional reality that we all live in. And guess what? The people who realize it's all a sham or a hoax or a complete load of nonsense will ultimately have a great deal of peer pressure to put up with, and will effectively become steered into that fake narrative. As we've seen, as is happening, this is how warfare happens, but it also incorporates it also incorporates things like, let's get an infusion of somebody from other nations in order to filter out whether it's the gene structure or whether it's just to cause a nuisance and create division and tension, which then allows the perfect opportunity for the political parasites to come in and, conduct their unholy business upon, an indoctrinated nation.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. Here in Michigan, we had the Ford factory, which Henry Ford established. We were talking earlier about the Model T Ford. He established this, and he paid his workers a family wage because he knew that high wages would actually lead to a more prosperous and better business for him. Because if the people who were making those Ford cars and automobiles couldn't afford to buy a Ford car or automobile, the business would eventually fade away into obscurity. And so he promoted that, and that's why he was such a success. And yet at the same time, as time went on, there were all sorts of psychological warfare going on, getting people to cede to their vices. And, you'd have, the drunken Irishman, right, on the job. And eventually that vice of drinking leads to low productivity because the families fall apart and it's a chase to the bottom. And then what they do is then they'd come up with a moral reason to then replace them with people, particularly from Arab countries where they follow Islam, where drinking is verboten, and they wouldn't get drunk on the weekends. They were more productive workers in that regard, and they could pay them less because they're foreigners. And that's the kind of stuff that goes on, the social engineering. Same thing in Germany. It's really bad in Germany. the COVID lockdowns and the vaccine mandates were even worse in Germany than they were in our countries, in English-speaking countries, as bad as it was here. So
Right.
it is. And then psychological warfare is nothing more than preventing two subjugated groups from communicating with each other. Because when we can communicate with people that otherwise were from different ethnicities or cultures, when we communicate, we can then stand up to the bullies in the government that are producing all these ill effects on our societies, and that they don't want that. So the best thing to do is to divide the workforce against each other, and then they can't coalesce and ask for higher wages. And that's why they promote things like the LGBTQP agenda, where it's like it's creating this division amongst people morally and against their common reason, the so practical reason, so that they then don't ask for a higher wage and they can pay them less and the bosses get rich.
Yeah.
You're right on. I mean, Pink Planet says Germany successful with car industry, etc., compared to UK. You would think we had lost the war. Well, what happened? It was the Marshall Plan, because Germany was flattened, so they had to start their industry from scratch, and they did. Whereas in Britain, we still had an industry as such, and I know for a fact that the car plants at British Leyland in the 1960s were using machines, and in the 70s, machines that were that were obsolete, made in the 1920s and 30s, whereas Germany and Japan were using the latest up-to-date machinery, and that's how they beat us with car production. It's because it was investment. Masses of investment went into Germany and Japan. They didn't come into this country. And so you can't blame this country. You know, we were fantastic designers. We designed fantastic cars, and but we just wasn't given the financial support. Again, it's the Marshall Plan. Now, Mark Mantis has said, to be fair, Pink, we wouldn't be speaking German, as the painter was a big fan of the British. Don't tell you that in the history books either, or about the numerous peace offerings. That's correct. Loads of, I think you know the number, don't you? The peace offerings that Churchill refused. There's an enormous amount of peace offerings. Do you know the one, Patrick? How many? I think it went into 30s.
I know there were many times. I don't know exactly how many.
That's right.
And I know that they also had the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, which would have seen a uniting of sorts between Germany and Russia, which is probably one of the main reasons for the war on the Eastern Front to begin with, is they did not want the powers that be, the central bankers, the government that we have now, didn't want Germany and Russia getting together and cooperating, just like they do to this day. That's why the Nord Stream 2 pipeline was destroyed and sabotaged, because it created business between the Russians and the Germans. And instead, now we have a war going on in the borderland, which that's the name Ukraine means borderland, between the German Empire, so to speak, and the Russian Empire. So, and that the lead up to World War II, they were making peace, and then suddenly the bombings started happening in places like Freiburg in the west, that drove them into fighting each other, and then because they had to gain territory for resources, eventually they were driven
But it's also
to war.
The USSR, Soviet Union, was going to attack the West, and the German generals, they had very good intelligence reports, said that if we are attacked by the Soviets, we won't be able to hold them, because the finest form of defense is attack. And that's why Germany had Operation Barbarossa in 1941 to attack the Soviet Union, because if they didn't attack, the Soviet Union would have engulfed Germany, swallowed up Germany, come across Europe, and would have taken Britain, and we probably wouldn't have been born. So, because communism is obsessed with genocide and culling the population, and
I would Sorry, I would change that to not just communism, but all forms of government. So whether that's fascist government, communist government, democratic government, or totalitarian government, because ultimately it's all the same thing. It's all socialism. It's all collectivism, no matter which side of the political spectrum that is, and that political spectrum at its at its common denominator between all of that will incorporate at some point in time, when it becomes psychopathic enough and powerful enough, will ultimately resort to eugenicism, which is what all of these nations, let's just say, that have been involved in major conflicts have resorted to, and that includes the UK.
You're right. Well, you got a good point. I mean, Mike Mantis goes on to say Rudolf Hess was captured on such a mission. Well, he wasn't captured as such. He came over on a peace mission, and the full details of that are still under lock and key. We do not know the full truth on that, and they'll be under lock and key until I think 2045 or something like that. So, but the fact of the matter is there was two intelligence units. There was the Churchill's intelligence, and there was another intelligence, and Churchill's intelligence got there first. This is what I heard, and got Hess. And if the other intelligence had got there first, the war would have been very different. We would have actually had peace terms with Mr. H. So that's I've said that in very simple statements, but yes. And now it says international banking. Mark Mantis going on to say international banking cartel always involved World War I, II, South America, Vietnam, Iraq. What's that? Vol and two. And yeah, a load of other ones as well. Yes, you're quite right. And now, Hereditas Get Fucked says, it saddens me to see old men lose their homes. Yes, you're quite right there. Now, Mark Mantis went on to say, war equals a shit ton of cash and political influence. Yes.
This is the thing that we really need to. This is one of the lessons from history we need to realize. I forget who you mentioned before about the international banking cartel. Well, yeah, they're always going to be behind wars. But what we've got to realize is this international banking cartel are funded by us, the taxpayer, the people. So if we can eventually learn from history and realize that, it's another state-sponsored pilfering of resources, or it's another state-sponsored proliferation of death and destruction, where young men are getting killed and civilians are getting killed in even bigger numbers, women and children, buildings, towns, cities, all the rest of it. Why? Because we haven't learned that we can't function without the warmongering, violent warmongers known as government. War will always be a factor and tenet of government. They will always proliferate war. Why? Because it's one of their key mechanisms and industries, and they need to feed that beast. So they need to keep generating warfare. I mean, we see that happening now in Iran, based upon what? Absolute nonsense. And who's suffering? Practically everybody. What's going to be the outcome? Well, the people are going to be impoverished, whether it's even for a short space of time or a long period of time. We're going to suffer. Then we're going to be taxed to the hilt. And guess who's going to become really wealthy and powerful as a result? Well, guess what? The people we keep funding, because we can't seem to function without this same warmongering bunch of psychopaths. And this is where we need to learn from history. We need to stop feeding the beast.
Do you think, though, Steve, and also Patrick, that these psychopaths have the ability to hypnotize people? Because I think they do. They do hypnotize people, because you get ordinary folk. I mean, you look at that lockdown. You look at what happened over the last 5 years. It seems only yesterday that a lockdown happened. You had ordinary people turning into absolute mini dictators, bastards. You know, you had people ordering you around and being very dictatorial to you. Why? And I found that a lot. I mean, we all found that, and we all had, you know, we were all at the blunt end, or the sharp end rather, from time to time. You know, people were rude to me because I didn't wear a mask. People were rude to you, Steve. People were probably rude to you, Patrick, as well, because you didn't wear a mask. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you know, as far as I'm concerned, they could stick their mask where the sun doesn't shine.
Yeah, there's a couple of points I would mention on that.
But
Psychopathy will always come out in people who are unenlightened. If they're not brain balanced, i.e., they've not, they've not joined their left brain and the right brain hemispheres as per the teachings of all secret societies, and to some degree all religions that have encoded this. You know, how to master one's own brain, how to master one's own mind in order to become masters of our own destiny, in order to become sovereign beings, autonomous, with a sense of liberty and freedom, and following the principles that are inherent in the universe, the non-aggression and the self-defense principles in equal measure. Then there will be what's known as secondary psychopathy that exhibits itself amongst people, where you've seen during the health emergency hoax, where people were becoming little dictators, you know, shop owners, bus conductors, all the rest of it, little Adolfs. Why? Because they're secondary psychopaths. They believe that they've got some sort of power over others, when in fact all men and women are created equal. And until people realize this and actually start to abide by the laws of nature, then we're always going to see that thing. And if we want an end to war, we need an end to government. It's as simple as that. We don't want wars anymore. We don't want things like D-Day or health emergencies. Stop voting for psychopaths. Stop funding psychopaths, and stop believing in the church of psychopathy, which is AKA the government.
Cut their lifeblood off. That's basically what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm
terribly sorry I spoke up over you there. Please accept my apology. I didn't realise it. Sorry about that. But no, what I was going to say is that, you know, cut their lifeblood is money. Cut their money supply off. That's what we really must do. Once they haven't got money, they're powerless. But Emvo, hello mate, this is our Transport Minister. Hello, Mr. Transport Minister. Says, I guess the state of play here now shows we aren't better off. But I agree with Patrick that wars shouldn't exist in the first place, and it is only the parasites that want wars. That's right. Now, looking down, what we got here. Now, this is interesting. Hachi. Now, nothing new under the sun. The Aborigines and the North-South tribes of America got ousted now. It's our turn. Where is our local reservations? We need to wake up. Very interesting point. And Exo says D-Day weekend should be renamed Downpour Day. Really? Yes. And apparently it peed down on D-Day because they, you know, it was originally going to be the 5th of June. And they're going over on the assault, on the the motherships. And my dad, who studied numerology, worked it out to the 6th of June. And my uncle said, not bad, there's only one day out. And he said, no, it's going to be delayed. And he just finished the sentence, and then over the loudspeakers, it came, the second front, as it was known then, it wasn't known as D-Day, the second front will be delayed 24 hours due to weather. So that was it. But I was talking to a gentleman, I won't say his name because I haven't had permission to say it, whose father was a fighter pilot during World War II. And we had barrage balloons up. And what they didn't tell the RAF is they put the barrage balloons up, I think it's twice the height they should be. So that might have downed a few of our own planes. So who knows, you know. But now the thing is, the other thing I was going to say is that how are we going to actually get about starving the parasites of their resources, because you get people say, look, okay, don't pay your council tax to people. They wet their pants. They wet their niggers with fear.
Yeah, you got to
And this
bell
is
the
the trouble.
cat.
We've got to overcome fear. Yeah. So this is why I think we need, a force of people to say, okay, we're not going to do it. What are you going to do about it?
Well, that's just it.
But,
To challenge any sort of corrupt government, you have to have unity in your challenge. Otherwise, if you have no unity, you can't act as a society. That's our biggest
that's
problem.
right.
I mean, like you
Yes,
say, like the complaint about the truth community is there's no unity. That's the biggest one. I mean, besides the fact that a lot of them have misconceptions, but no, there's no unity.
There's one
Well, there isn't.
There's
there
one
isn't.
unifying principle that kind of, I mean, one thing that I encourage, obviously on my various social media platforms and what have you. There's one thing I will say, in fact, I give it like a 3-phase sort of military style operation to how we can shape the future for the better. And one of those principles is what's known as the selection and maintenance of the aim. So let's just say what's known as the truth movement is quite splintered in its understanding, i.e. doesn't have a common sort of set objective or purpose. It doesn't have an aim as such, but that aim needs to be freedom. Now, if that aim is agreed upon, which I'd imagine it is, because we wouldn't be called the Truth and Freedom Movement if we didn't want freedom, then freedom comes at a price, and that price is an understanding of the dynamics of nature that enable freedom to happen in the first place. And that falls under a principle. I say principle, it's actually a law written into the architecture of creation. It's known as natural law. And when, if I could mention natural law to a million people, and a lot of people will be scratching their heads simply because they don't understand how reality is formulated. They don't understand the dynamics at play in the universe. So therefore, this large bunch of people can be easily exploited, because if they lack an understanding, then they can't apply an action in order to drive that understanding forward. So the selection and maintenance of the aim, believe it or not, is an element of warfare. It's known as the 10 principles of war. So number one of that list, so Second World War, Afghan War, all of these warfare campaigns, military planners, the first thing they would do is select and maintain an aim, i.e. what is the aim of that conflict, that battle, that war? Well, for us, we want freedom, therefore we need to select the principles that enable freedom, and then we need to maintain the conditions that generate it. Believe it or not, it might sound a little bit alien to some listeners, but the means to generate freedom is established in a science. It's known as the law of freedom, and it simply goes, as morality increases, freedom increases. So if we want to maintain freedom as our selected aim, we need to maintain and improve upon our collective morality. So to a lot of people, again, some people might be scratching their heads saying, well, I'm a pretty decent person. What do I need to do differently? Well, this is the kind of one of the most pivotal points of this is if we support let's just say an institution or a body that dictates the terms of morality, and let's call this entity the government. Well, the government, I hate to say it for any government supporters out there, government will never, ever, 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 ever ad infinitum ever be able to improve morality. Why? Because fundamentally the government operate on violence and theft in order to operate. So violence and theft is immoral. And if you have to employ violence and theft in order to establish your group identity, your political agenda, then that entity will never be able to establish morality. Therefore, society will always suffer and it will always be enslaved. This is written into scientific principle. This isn't just make-believe religious mumbo-jumbo. This is scientific fact. It's objective fact. It's written into the objective laws of nature. Therefore, if we don't understand this and apply it, we as the Truth and Freedom movement are never going to establish truth and freedom. So we may as well give up. I would obviously not, advocate for giving up. But what we need to do is have a cultural mindset shift, a paradigm shift in our understanding.
I think also what we've got to do is bring back men and bring back women, not men dressed as women and women dressed as men. We need men as men and women as women. All right, there has always been a very, very, very small percentage of freaks that dress in the opposite sex garb. Yes,
yeah, you're talking about a perversity of language.
There's always has been and always will be.
The
perversity of everything.
Yeah, the language has been perverted, hasn't it?
I mean,
that we use.
Well, that's right. I mean, Enviro, Blu-ray said, I was watching Europa and the Zionists created communism. It's a fantastic documentary, Europa. I think you can still see it on Rumble. I think it's banned on YouTube. I don't know.
Can I just also add, there's a hell of a lot of propaganda and misleading, misdirection in those Europe. I'm not saying it's all inaccurate, but there's lots of misdirection in those, in that whole Europe thing.
I've never seen it. I've only heard about it.
Well, I have. I'll tell you what was controlled opposition: Zeitgeist. Because Zeitgeist was, that came out, 20 odd years ago. And Zeitgeist was communism by the back door. Incredibly well done, very skillfully well done, but it didn't. It was controlled opposition, and of course there was that other one. What was it called now? Propaganda, and people thought it came from North Korea. It didn't. It came from Australia, and it's a North Korean doing the and it's to make it famous. And I remember. I think it's Dave Starbucks. He thought that it was from North Korea. He always said, this has been leaked from North Korea. It isn't. It's not North Korea at all. And the poor sod who was from North Korea, who spoke on it, he was actually, his community where he lives, he was looked down upon for doing the documentary. But now, Matilda says Coventry was bombed bad because no one told them to turn the lights out. Hence being sent to Coventry when no one speaks to you. Allegedly. No, I don't think that's quite true, actually. Actually, what it was is that they were systematically bombing cities, and we had broken the codes, and the code breakers knew that Coventry, and Churchill knew that Coventry was going to be bombed. So what they did is they withdrew all these fire services, ambulance services, and emergency services out of Coventry, and they thought it was a bit strange, all these emergency services, and let the bombers bomb Coventry because they didn't want to let Germany know that we had cracked their codes. Because if we'd have been ready for them, they'd have known that we're cracking their codes. So that was the Enigma code. We was cracking, the Enigma code. So
the Enigma Code company.
There's not many people know that.
The group that done the Enigma Code, I think they use the Illuminati eye symbol as part of that insignia. It's essentially
really
when we're talking about World War I and World War II, for example, we've got to realize that these weren't just these weren't just chance encounters that happened, naturally. These were orchestrated events which were predetermined and pre-planned, plotted and determined by the social engineers of the day, the psychopathic ruling elite, the satanic mindset individuals who run the banking cartels and who run international political spectrum. this is what. So war is an outcome that they plan for and hope to achieve in order to achieve political aims and objectives. One example of this is NATO. And what I would say is, if anyone wants to have a look on the internet and just have a plan view of the latest NATO headquarters in Belgium, and then see what shape that looks like, and tell me there's nothing kind of fascist in its kind of approach or its look, its aesthetics, then I'd be surprised. But because the whole building looks like the what's known as the SS, the Schwarzstaffen insignia. Yeah. So if that is normal for what we would anticipate the NATO headquarters building to look like, well, actually, I don't know what to say about that. But the whole
What about the German building? Sorry to cut in there, Steve. But what about the German building? That's the Tower of Babel. Almost identical.
are you talking about
That's
the EU
German government
Parliament?
building.
Yeah, the EU Parliament is the Tower of Babel.
The Tower of Babel.
But a lot of these buildings show the aspects of what you call the dark occult embedded, or the dark occult ideology embedded into its architecture. Because, I mean, you just have to look at Wewelsburg Castle, for example, where the SS were headquartered. Have a look at the shape of that and tell me that's not an Illuminati pyramid shape. You know, the all-seeing eye motif. It gets everywhere.
That's interesting.
That's massively interesting.
But now Mark Mantis said, I heard Europa is about 80% accurate, and Blu-ray said, I can post it on Eric's channel. It's 13 hours. Well, when you say Eric's channel, you post it on Telegram. If you put it on Facebook, I think it'll last about 3 seconds. But Telegram, yeah, it'll be okay. Now, that's my Telegram channel. Now it says Hellstorm. This is Mike Mantis. Is another one worth a watch. Grim though, the book was harrowing. Yes, as Paul English says, it'll be the worst book you've ever read, and he means that in a good way. In a sympathetic way, because it will affect you emotionally, because it is the hidden story of the way the Germans were treated as the Soviets were advancing and capturing towns and things. Horrific, absolutely horrific Hellstorm. And I've seen Hellstorm and I was moved to tears. It really gave me a great lump in my throat. It's just, I mean, have you seen it, Steve or Patrick?
No,
Hellstorm?
I started listening to Paul English's narration of it. I haven't listened to the entire thing or read the book. And from what little I've heard of it, it's horrific.
Well, it's
because
worth
it's a lot of
seeing.
it's not even like the front line. It's not even the frontline people that were the problem. A lot of it were supply line troops that were doing all the raping and pillaging of these areas in Germany during the war.
Yeah, that's right. The photographs, well, don't have something to eat beforehand. I mean, it'll turn your stomach. It is what a film. It really, from a human point of view, it's horrendous, and it really is. And again, it's all been brushed under the carpet. And something I was going to speak about, and Christine is probably watching this and thinking he hasn't said anything about it yet, and that is what happened to people of Italian and German extraction during World War II. So sorry, Christian, you've had to wait
Or
a long
Japanese,
time, I'm going to read this
in
out
America's case.
Oh,
The Japanese were also
correct.
affected.
Now, you just bear with me a few moments. I've actually got her email here, and she would like me to read this out. And where are we? And it's taking a month of Sundays to load. So I think the best thing is we'll carry on for a while, and about, well, you know, Hellstorm and things like that, because I think it's very, very important to find out what really happened I
cause
mean,
the
for
war.
example, the Soviet rape squads and things
Yeah.
like that.
I've my biggest
Yes,
question of the
yes.
whole thing.
And
Eric,
and
can you hear me? My biggest,
Yeah, I can
my
hear you,
biggest question regarding the whole thing is what necessitated Operation Barbarossa? That was when Hitler invaded Poland and decided to go against the Soviet Union. Why did he do that? And the reason that they had the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was because of the British blockades of the North Sea and the Mediterranean, going in and out of Gibraltar and the Suez. So he had to get supplies. Germany had to get supplies from the Soviet Union, from places like Ukraine, in order to feed the population in Germany, because every other outlet was blockaded off by the British. So they made a peace pact with the Soviet Union. Why did he then decide to invade, other than they needed the resources? And that was why they were moving eastward. What are your thoughts about
no, it wasn't.
because everything I look up, it's all
It was-
talking about how Barbarossa
The-
was
the-
because
the-
he wanted to take over the Soviet Union.
That's the official version, but the real version, and if you look at, I think David Irving may have covered this, was because the Soviets were building up and building up and building up to invade Germany. They were going to attack Germany, and they had very good inside information about this, and they knew that Russia, the Soviets were going to invade, and the colonels and the high brass told Mr. H, if we don't attack, we'll be slaughtered. We just would not be able to hold an invading army. We just wouldn't be able to.
Why didn't
hold
they
them.
negotiate that?
So
why
they
didn't they?
got?
I guess this is my, we're like Monday morning quarterbacks trying to decide this, but why didn't they negotiate? They just wanted to kill each other, but they signed the peace treaty. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily, because you see, the thing is that the plan was set. So negotiating, it would actually, they might be able to buy time in negotiating, but the Soviets were intent on taking over Europe, and they did it eventually using ideological subversion via other techniques, but they were obsessed with spreading communism through Europe. And that's why when Operation Barbarossa started, Germany made such great gains, because the army was trained as an attacking army, not a defending army. And that's why Germany managed to go through the Soviet Union at such a high speed. But what happened is they went late for two reasons. One, the rain. It rained in 1941 torrentially, and tanks wouldn't have been able to have gone through the mud, so they delayed it. And secondly, Hitler had dysentery, and it was delayed because of that. So instead of having something like a May offensive, where they would have got through to Red Square, they went in July, August, and it was much later. And of course, they couldn't get through, and also they extended their supply line too long. And of course, the Soviets came around on the pincer movement and cut them off. And that's how they got, I think it was the 7th Army, cut off in Leningrad. It's because of the Soviet pincer movement and because their supply line was so huge. So that's a little bit there. So I don't know if I've answered the question there, Patrick, or not.
Kind of. But then why would the British and the Soviets ally with each other when they were the British were opposed to communism, apparently, because they're not communist. So, it was just because they found that they could, eventually, obviously it worked out to their benefit in destroying the Germans and the Axis. So I guess it made sense, but.
Well, we're supplying them. America was supplying them.
But they also had lots of resources
there is evidence
themselves, because
I'm not saying I agree.
They also had lots of resources because of the
they moved all their factories into Siberia, didn't they?
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
They moved all their factories into. That's right. But the thing is, America and Britain were supplying the Soviet Union, And when you look at it from a long point of view, is who financed who? And it was the banking families that financed communism. So they wanted it to succeed. So that's something else that's overlooked. That we were, I mean, when you look at the atrocities that happened in the Soviet Union, they don't know the exact numbers. Some people say it's 10 million, some people say it's 60 million, and that is the amount of Christians that were actually
Murdered.
genocided.
Yeah. And yet
That
at the
is
same
actually
time,
overlooked. We do not know the true victims.
they claim that capitalism and communism are at odds to each other. Then I mean, how do we square that circle? Because that's always pumped into us.
Well, the ultimate, yeah, but the ultimate objective of capitalism is communism, because you wipe out the opposition. This is what we've got now, and then you are king of the castle. You rule, and this is why I very much believe in free enterprise, which is very, very different. That is the middle approach, and that's what Henry Ford preached, and that is free enterprise, where you don't go around taking over all your opposition. You work, shall we say, hand in glove. And I mean, for example, Fords they always asked Henry Ford, why didn't he take over Girling, the brake people? And I think it was Girling. And he said, they're good at making brakes, we're good at making motor cars. Let them carry on making brakes. And Girling supplied Fords with, or it might have been, Lockheed, I think it was. That was it, Lockheed. So, that was Henry Ford's principle. This is why I'm against capitalism, against communism, but I'm for free enterprise, which is very, very different. So that's the thing. And Embro has said, apparently, this is quite interesting. When they bombed Coventry, they did £50 worth of improvements. Sorry, that's a terrible one. Now, over to Christine. Now, Christine's asked me to read this out. Now, Christine, her grandfather was Italian, and he came over from Italy, and her father was born here, and he had a Geordie accent. And what happened in World War II, two things with her family. One, her father's brother fought on Mussolini's side in the Italian army, and her brother was, I'm not sure if he was conscripted, I think he was, in the British army, which is an interesting thing. So the two sides were fighting two brothers were metaphorically fighting each other. And then what happened to her grandfather? Well, they arrested him for being Italian, just for being Italian. And they sent him not to nearby camps, because they interned people that they called aliens, who are, illegal, people of German and Italian descent and Japanese descent. They arrested them. They actually put them on the Isle of Man. And apparently, because he was dragged away from his wife and family and that, he came back a changed man. He was completely different. And as he was on the Isle of Man, he was away from his family. And I say, he never got over it. And they also used the same camps as in World War One. That's right, because in World War One they set up, and they called them concentration camps, and they arrested anybody of German origin. And some of these people had German surnames, but they couldn't speak a word of German because they were second and third generation, and they were treated horrendously in the First World War in these concentration camps. And there's one such concentration camp at a place called Alexander Palace, which the BBC used for their first broadcasts. So there's something there. That's really going to put me light on. I can't see. Now, what happened is perhaps a topic for another program, but her grandparents died by the time she was born. But her father never talked about it. But what happened is their businesses were destroyed, and people of Italian and German extraction were treated very, very badly, And this was part of what So she says, during World War II, they were rounded up in the middle of the night, in the middle of the night, sent away from their families, who, in many cases, spoke little English. Their businesses were destroyed, and in the case of the Andorra ship, sent to Canada. They were exiled. Exiled is the correct term. This is the insert. With a skeleton crew and no Red Cross. On the ship was bombed and 800 lost their lives. And at home, the police turned a blind eye to the mobs who looted and destroyed their homes and shops. These people were Italians. They had left their sun-kissed land, their spacious homes, to make their fortunes. They would have made their own way in education. They were no threat to anyone. So that is something that is overlooked on how the Italian and German people were treated in this country during World War II. And that ship that was sunk with 8,000 people on board has been swept under the carpet. We don't know anything about that. I hope I said that right, Christine. If I haven't, you can give me a smack on the wrist. But that's what happened to her grandfather. And it's very, very sad. And that happened a lot. And their business, as I say, mobs smashed their businesses up. Innocent people, kind people, gentle people, treated like that. Now, I think that happened in Japan. In America, didn't it? To people of Japanese extraction.
And Germans.
They were herded into camps
And
as
Germans.
well. And their businesses were smashed up. And
They,
Germans,
no,
yes.
they definitely
Yes.
did German.
And their businesses
Germany.
were smashed up as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here in
Yes. And
here in my small town that I live near and work in, they have a old canning factory that was built as a German POW work camp on the rail line that runs through the town. So yeah,
really?
And I think they also I'm not sure about this, but they also had them during World War I because they were the enemy. So people of German descent were seen as the enemy, and they were treated very badly. And that was part of the whole psychological warfare against the German people during that era too. Because they had seen what was going on with a lot of the banking type things.
But in World War One,
World War One. So, I just want to let you
That's
know
right.
that
now in World War One, Italy and Japan were our allies, weren't they?
Italy and Japan.
Sorry, mate.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a delay.
Were our allies in World War One? Yeah.
I just want to let you know that at 9:30, Eric,
Japan.
9:30, I'm gonna sign off because I have another show to prepare for.
Oh.
I'm doing a pre-record.
Give us a good
Yeah,
plug.
I'm doing a pre-record for this show from a fella that goes by the handle Jeremy from Kentucky and Patrick Slattery. They do a regular show together every week on republicbroadcasting.com. And I don't know when it'll be broadcast, I think Monday or Tuesday, one of those days over there. You can look the schedule up.
We'll please put it on Telegram, and we'll give it a good plug. And also, if you give me some details on Telegram, I'll give it a plug tomorrow night as well, because I'm on with Ben tomorrow, and we're talking about scientists that have gone missing. Ooh, interesting. And Mike Mantis said the British cracked the German codes quite early on in the war. Churchill got regular reports of when bombing raids were to happen. He buggered off to the country when this happened. Yes, that's spot on. Yes, he was no hero, that bastard.
He was a racist, a coward, a drunk, a tyrant. He was an international war criminal. Churchill, yeah, he's regarded as a hero amongst the average school kid.
If it's anything like the American Civil War, you had Masons on both sides that knew what was going on and would communicate through the lodges, and they were manipulating things in the background. And I believe that was happening on both sides in all of these wars and in any of these wars.
Oh,
They're
yeah,
even going out
100%
now.
agree. The army is basically just a branch of masonry. So is the police. It's just a branch of Freemasonry, and Freemasonry is just another secret society that proliferates or exploits other people to benefit themselves, just as the government do. Again, these are the lessons we need to learn from history. Secret societies have been behind all the campaigns, certainly World War II, World War One, then this latest, the ongoing World War III PSYOP, this hybrid war that's still ongoing. That a lot of people still haven't figured that one out. That we're actually at war, and they're still wondering which lunatic to vote for next to make the situation a little bit less of a concentration camp.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems that the only thing you can really hope for in this is that one of these people have a prick of conscience and then they speak out against it. But then the moment they speak out against it, they get a bullet in the neck.
Yeah,
like a Charlie Kirk.
And I mean, that sounds great in
That's
principle, but in reality, if they had a conscience, they wouldn't be in politics, because they'd realize that all politics is based upon immorality, and immorality is what government will always be. So in order to be a politician, you've got to be immoral from the, probably brainwashed. I mean, as a soldier, I was brainwashed. I didn't regard myself as immoral until after the brainwashing had subsided, and I'd realized that I was adding to the immorality in society by working for a bunch of psychopathic lunatics, international banking cartels and secret societies, Freemasons included, which is why the army and the police all have the same Freemasonic rank markings, the 1, 2, or 3 chevrons to denote what, the rank structure. And all of that is based upon immorality, the whole lot of it, the whole principle, you could say the whole human race in its organizing principles, thinking that they need to be under the ownership of government. It's all immoral. It all violates the laws of creation. It all violates natural rights. Of course, until we wake up sufficiently, and I'm talking about the truth movement here, until the truth movement actually wake up to realize that all of this conspiracy stuff is just small. It's little league. We need to get out the conspiracy rubbish of who does this, which group's doing that. It's all bollocks. We need to.
Yeah.
The cream, the golden thread is the laws of nature, morality, behavioral consequences that lead to the conditions that we create for ourselves. Until we realize that, we're gonna stay half asleep, and we're gonna still be well, put it this way, we're never going to be doing that truth and freedom thing that we keep talking about, because truth and freedom is man's behavior.
I agree.
Is it based upon morality? Is it based upon principles of morality, or is it not? And if it's not in alignment with the laws of nature, then it's immoral because it's following the inauthentic laws of man. Then this is why we keep enslaving ourselves. We keep following the inauthentic guiding principles of man's law.
Yep, I'm gonna bow out here,
spot on,
Eric and Steve.
Okay.
If anybody,
thanks for coming on.
If anybody wants to listen, if anyone wants to listen to the program that Eric and I did yesterday, type in podcast.holylandradio.com, and that will bring up the podcast page. So podcast.holylandradio.com. And thank you very much. And
fantastic.
I'll be talking with you both later.
Thank
All
you,
the best,
Patrick.
mate.
It's very kind.
All right.
of you.
Cheers.
Okay. Have a good day. Thanks, mate. Bye. Now, Jollyman said the theatre of war, order followers, killing other people, taking orders from the non-elected, without any lawful responsibility. How did this ever happen? That's a very good question. How did it ever happen?
It's a brilliant point.
I don't think else. It is, isn't it? It's a bloody good one. That is. And Exo's come up with a good one afterwards. So,
is it worth commenting on what?
Should we want to answer that one?
Can I comment on what the Jollyman's put? Because I think that's a
brilliant
brilliant point. He's
Yeah,
basically
why not? I
mentioned
think it's
order
good one.
followers, and
Good
bearing in
one,
mind,
yeah.
I was an order follower. And when I was an order follower, i.e. a soldier, by the way, the word soldier, soul dead, for anyone who wasn't familiar with that, soul dead. Why? Because basically you're completely dead from the neck up. You've got no emotional or spiritual intelligence whatsoever. You just follow orders, and that order followers are the biggest scourge of humanity. So the police and military are probably the finest examples of that. But you could say practically anybody who works for the government or government-based departments. That includes like things like tax collectors, for example. If you work in the tax collection facilities in whatever country, you are an order following numpty. You're a secondary psychopath. You believe that government own the decisions. You believe as part of the religious government cult that the government can change and alter morality according to whatever whim, diktat, or act of legislation that they wish to throw into the equation. It cannot be done because morality is objective in nature. It can never be changed. It can only be altered by people who are brainwashed, order following numpties. And of course, as a former order following numpty myself, killing people was one of the directions of taking orders from, well, the jolly man said non-elected. However, non-elected or elected, if you cannot, nobody, whether they're elected or not, or they wear a fancy uniform, they've got a badge, or they've got a picture of the Queen on some letter-headed paperwork, nobody has got any more rights than any other individual. So the Queen, the King, the Prime Minister, Donald Trump, the Elon Musk, none of these people have got any more rights than you or I or anybody listening in. And until people realize that they need to be sovereign in their own minds, then they're never going to be sovereign in their own bodies, because they're always going to bow down to the will of these illegitimate psychopath, power-hungry lunatics. And of course, I think the Jollyman's put a great point there. Order followers.
That really is. Yeah. And let's face it, we've all been numpties because we had to go through that stage. And the way I look on education is some geezer's got a white coat or a stethoscope around their neck, or they're full of their own selves and all that. They're numpties. And I think it's self-awareness. You wake up, you learn things, and some of the most educated people I've come up against are just ordinary people that have come up the hard way and learnt the tough way, gone through life. Like, you look at these elderly people, and the way we treat elderly is extremely bad in the West. They should be respected for their wisdom. And I mean, now this is a good one from Exo. He said, and this is true, he says Churchill used the broken code readouts for his own cowardly chauffeur fast. Yeah, and his chauffeur made a diary of it as well. Chauffeur fast drivers to the countryside trips whilst doing a recording for the BBC, pretending he was still in London. What a F-wit. Yes, I agree with you there. And the thing is that Mark Mantus backs that up. He said that Churchill's bodyguard kept a detailed diary. That's correct. Yes, that's it. And now Blue Racers, I meant Eric's Telegram channel. Yeah, I mean, I've got a Facebook channel, Fockham Hall, which is, if you'd like to join it, details are down below. Yeah, no, not on Steve's head, but on this.
It's not much there.
And not much here either. And so you can go to my Telegram channel, which I use most of the time, Facebook channel, and I'm also on Gab as well as a link to Gab. And now it says, I'm not sure I can read this out fully because we're still on Food for Thought Radio. Clever PR, though, for the fat person starting with an F. Shall we say sucker with an F? Now, Mark Mantus, this is an interesting one. Churchill gave a speech about Londoners not bending to the Germans bombing knowing full well that Coventry was the next target. And I know for a fact that Churchill got chased out of the East End by women with rolling pins and eggs, and he was pelted with eggs. Him and his bodyguard out to make a fast exit, and he never went to the East End after that. It was actually film set of like somewhere else, but it wasn't the East End because they hated him, absolutely loathed him in the East End. And I know that for 100% fact. He was actually attacked by a group of women. Good for them. Oh,
Yeah,
they're rolling
exactly.
pins as well. Now it said here, have you seen? This is Mark Anthony, rather. I'm terribly sorry. Mark Anthony said, Mark, have you seen the film? But I have not yet read the book. The film was harrowing to watch. That is, yeah, that's. I believe you're talking about Hellstorm.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and Exo said he went for the early bombing raids. That's right. Yes. Okay. Now, where we go? Yes, Alan Clark. Are you talking about the ex-Conservative MP, Alan Clark? Alan Clark did a good book on Barbarossa. Yes, he was a very good historian, and he got into trouble for saying that Britain need not have got involved in World War One, and we could have supplied both sides with armaments and made a fortune out of it and become very, very rich. And I think he was right. Now, this is Jollyman. This is an interesting one. Russia supplied the titanium for the SR-71 secret spy plane. Ford supplied material to the Nazis all through the war, and Sweden became a safe bank. That's right. And I know for a fact, Standard Oil supplied Germany with oil throughout the war, and American pilots were ordered not to shoot their trucks. And these trucks with Standard Oil clearly written on the side were trundling through Hungary. And that was because the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds owned the oil wheels, and they weren't allowed to, and the American Army Air Force were given strict orders not to strafe those trucks at all.
So one thing we
Interesting,
can
isn't it?
safely
Isn't that
say
weird?
from, let's just say, war in general, and I know this is kind of focused upon D-Day and World
Yeah.
War II, but it's no difference there. Essentially, warfare is just a business deal between the various factions of secret societies, and it's just channeled through the, let's just say, the idiot order followers of, like myself, idiot order followers indoctrinated by cultural, the cultural normality of society and the false education that we're all given, the lack of moral education that the average person is neglected to, not through his own volition, but through the cultural norms of society, and the false empowerment given by, let's just say, government direction, because government don't want people to be morally educated. Why? Because then they'd achieve autonomy, then they'd achieve sovereignty, then government would be completely unnecessary, and then they wouldn't have anybody to boss around. So essentially, these warring factions all work in cahoots, but they get the order followers to do the fighting for them. Why? Because it keeps the population down and it generates massive power and income for them. So, they don't lose out, but, the average person does and always will, because we still have this, we're still clinging on to this ridiculous religious cult-like belief that government is a necessary thing to organize society. And you say every time, Eric, government is responsible for the deaths of over 262 million people in the last 100 years outside of conflict. That's not including combatants.
That's right.
I mean, you just have to look at World War II, for example, the biggest, I don't know if I can say the T word, which ends in errorism. But you get what I'm saying. The biggest acts
I
of
understand exactly what you
terror
mean.
were committed by government action. Let's just say some of the things dropped in Japan were the act of government action. The average people, people wouldn't get together. Even psychopathic criminal-minded people would not suddenly get together, be able to proliferate millions of pounds of wealth, and then suddenly make bombs that are going to destroy cities. No criminal gang would be able to do that. However, government can. Why? Because it employs order followers, brainwashes them through, the societal norms. The average person then becomes a moral relativist, i.e., it then becomes kind of a religious disposition where it believes that morality can be altered by anybody who claims power and ownership, which is what government do over people. And until we, let's just say the truth movement, gain enough credibility of their own self-empowerment, self-actualization, then this warfare thing will always continue. And sorry to labor on this, but I talked about NATO earlier. So the business model of NATO is known as the conflict continuum. Right, so let's have a little think about that for a minute. The conflict continuum. Conflict, well, that's kind of, let's just say, it's another word for warfare. And continuum, well, what does that mean? It means it's not going to end. Why is it the business model of NATO? Because NATO don't want peace. That's why the conflict continuum goes from competition to conflict to crisis back to competition. It doesn't have peace in the equation. Why? Because it doesn't want peace. So when you're the people or the organization responsible for pretty much all the wars going on since World War II, NATO, certainly got a massive ownership or involvement in warfare. If they don't negotiate or want peace, well, why do we as the human race ever expect it? It's not because we keep funding the war machine. We need to stop it.
You're spot on. Now, talking about negotiations, I work with a chap, and he's a very honest sort of person, not a type of person to. Oh, by the way, I made a big boo-boo with Food for Thought Radio. Sorry, Paul. No, I worked with a chap who was not a type of person to tell a full story. He's quite a straightforward character. And when he started work, he started off as an apprentice in electrical engineering and that. So he's like a Sparks, And the firm that he worked for got a contract at a trade union place where at the time, it was in the 70s, early 70s, when there was a lot of hoo-ha going on with the unions. And there we go. And what happened is he was overhearing, he was in the next room, and he was overhearing what was going on. And he could hear these two sides having a laugh and joke, eating sandwiches, and really sort of, having a good time. And then on the news that night, you would think they're at each other's throats. It was all worked out in the meeting, what they're going to tell the newspapers and what they're going to tell the news. Anyway, we are now welcomed another guest to the show, and I believe it's Miles. Good evening, Miles. Is he there? Are you there, Miles? Cooey. Let's have a look, see if we got him on board. Yes, he's on the screen. Let's see if I can do something to his sound. I've got him on board here. We'll see. Yes, he's in. Yes, he's in there. Okay. Let's see if I can. No, there's no problems there. Everything seems to be okay this end. So, Miles, if you could, is there any problem? No, I can't see any problems here. Can adjust your sound if you've got problems with sound. Let's have a look. Oh, no, he's dropped the signal. Oh, well, that's life. I was hoping he's going to come on. But anyway, Matilda says Northern Ireland, no, I don't know anything about this, is still the same with treatment of certain surnames. Don't know anything about that. That's interesting. Yes. Now, Exo says, what is it now? About the internment of Italians and Germans. And Exo said, the English never did appreciate a good pizza or smoked German sausage, and we're left with fish and chips and bad curry shops for what's it say? Yes. Now it says here Manzanar near Japanese internment camp in the US, 1 of 10 camps. Yes, that's Mike Mantis mentioned that. Yes. Now we got here. Let's have a look down. Oh, here we are. David Irving stated that an actor recorded a lot of Churchill's radio broadcasts during the war, as he was always bladdered. That is quite correct, and I believe Tommy Steele's father did it as well.
Right. Yeah. Well.
Yeah. And that was we fight him on the beaches. And did you know the Canadian Prime Minister, when he went to visit Churchill, said in his diary that he was a drunken bum.
Yeah. Yeah.
He said he was just drunk, you know. Now, Mark Mantis has come an interesting one. Sorry, Mark Antony. I get muddled up. I'm terribly sorry. Please excuse my rudeness. Mark Antony, I'm terribly sorry. Domicide equals death by government.
Yeah. This is another thing that, as was said before, 262 million is pretty much the well documented figure of deaths by government, democide, and that's before, let's just say, before the recent health emergency, because the figures from that is likely to be astronomical. That's, you know, I mean, early on, I was hearing figures into the millions as a result of the hands or the actions taken by governments during that particular pantomime. And sadly, I mean, a lot of my former colleagues in the army, who I've been in communication with, won't even acknowledge that that recent health emergency was either something shady about it, certainly won't recognize that it was completely fabricated. But if, I mean, this is why I haven't got a good word to say about anybody in the military, simply because if you can't acknowledge this going on in one's own nation and understand the mechanism of subversion going on, then literally your job as a soldier is absolutely worthless, because you can't even understand or recognize the enemy. You can't understand combat operations taking place inside your own home soil. So that, to me, the military are a complete lost cause, a complete waste of time. All of them need to resign. And I've said this many times. Obviously, I can't back that up in just a 5-minute dialogue. That needs to be, it needs to be part of an ongoing study, let's say, an ongoing study of morality, which is one thing I promote with the Occult Academy. Natural law and the and morality is
on Telegram. On Telegram, I hasten to add. Yes, very good. I've joined up to it as well. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut across you there, but I best thought about mentioning that. And sorry, are you going to say? Sorry, mate.
I mean, there's three things. I mean, there is a number of different things I will promote, but some of the individual requirements, if we want to, let's just say, get through this latest World War III campaign, which is, as I said earlier, is a cognitive warfare operation. And who's it aimed against? It's aimed against the general public. Why? Because that's how you achieve power and control and wealth, is by basically having an us and them division between the general public and the ruling elite. They're not going to be the ruling elite if they've not got anybody to rule over. So if you don't want to be ruled over, well, 3 individual requirements I would suggest is we need to increase holistic intelligence, that, you know, an all-encompassing intelligence that also includes, let's just say, elements of what would be regarded as the occult. Because if you don't understand the occult, then that level of intelligence is not holistic. It needs to incorporate a large body of things that some people may or may not understand in good levels. Another thing I would recommend is to eliminate mind controlling behaviors, One of those controlling behaviors is basically through religious type belief. And that, when I say religious belief, I'm not just on about cultural or Abrahamic religions, I'm on about the religion of government. So the government do not have any power whatsoever. Any power that they claim to have is inauthentic. It's also based upon illusion. Therefore, you have to be under religious mind control to actually believe that there is an organization that has any more rights than you or I do. The third thing I would also say is we need to improve as an individual. We need to improve upon levels of care, simply because if we don't care to change anything and we just think it's somebody else's responsibility, you know, or if we vote harder or better or cleverer or longer, then eventually somebody will step up to the mark. That's never going to happen. We need to care enough to change the circumstances. We need to care enough to impose the will of God, the creator, the natural laws inherent in the universe, as opposed to the inauthentic laws of man. And of course, if we don't care to do that, well, it's not going to happen. So there's three things as a takeaway, I guess.
That's interesting. Now, EXO has said, what about the SAS? Yeah, what about the SAS? TV dude, Anton or Ant Middleton. Someone, Steve, I don't understand this, who lost his TV SAS leading role by being quite early compared to most to call out the PHAXX. Do you understand that? I don't.
I know who he's on about in terms of Ant Middleton, and I believe he's no longer, popular on the TV because he was a bit outspoken. I'm not sure what fax means. Oh, is it? Let me see. I've got a prop. Let's see if I get this right. Is it that? Is that what the fax is?
Yes. I think that's what he means. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, it looks like.
Okay. Now, if he's, I'll be quite honest. The last I heard about him was he was running to be London mayor. And I mean, if you're running to be London mayor, then you're clearly an advocate for the government. Therefore, you don't understand your enemy. So I'll say this quite blatantly: if Ant Middleton doesn't understand his own government as being his own enemy, then clearly he's not a special forces soldier. He's a special forces numpty, as far as I'm concerned. Because if you can't understand what who your enemy is, then who are you going to point your blinking weapons at, or channel your energy towards?
You got a point. Now, EXO's gone on to say, surely the SAS should spot a bio warfare scam way ahead of the rest of the population.
You'd think.
Even the top-ranking military or civil service top-ranking type. And EXO says, yes. Well, it's like everything else. Sometimes they can't see the wood from the trees. I mean, some of the people I've worked with have got qualifications as long as your arm, but are as thick as two short planks. Seriously. And I told you about that. Do you remember telling you about that engineer, structural engineer, who couldn't fold a piece of paper up to make the bleeding doorway, to wedge the door open on the summer's day. He's going, yes. So he had to show how to do it because mummy and daddy had paid for his qualifications. And that happens.
So ultimately, I'm going to show this again. This is my favorite prop. Soldiers against syringes. All right, soldiers against syringes. There's many members. Let's just say there's many people in positions of certain units within the British Army who have been informed of no uncertain terms, with no, let's say, no punches pulled to give them an understanding as to the situation regarding these particular things. They've got no excuse. The only excuse they've got is because they've got a satanic minded disposition. They're They're not living in morality. They're not living in truth. They're not interested in the freedoms and rights of others. They're only interested in their own pensions, their own income, their own mortgages, their own job status. They are absolute boneheaded, satanically minded cowards. And I will say this to every single serving member of every special forces unit in the entire world, who I've all invited into a boxing fight, by the way, and I'll take them all on regiment by regiment, because that's how boneheaded these people are, to knock some sense in them. If they can't realize or admit that they've been duped, they've all took it, they've all allowed it, and they've done absolutely nothing to safeguard, to honor their own oath, even to protect and serve the well-being of their own countrymen. If they can't even do that, they can't apply the Nuremberg Code.
Well,
sorry, mate, go on.
Well, I'll hold your coat, Steve. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'll hold your coat, and I'm armed with my Sharpie, so I'm all right there.
Right,
so,
you know,
he's got his Sharpie there. You know, that's it. But Miles has come on. Dr. Miles Fleetwood says, "Hi, Chris. It's Miles here. I tried to get online, but just can't deal with the more naughty technology tonight. Yes, it's Restream. It can be a bit naughty. I shall just listen in for a while." And he gave me a good tip. You see, lots of creepy crawlies thought my legs were tasty. So I was getting bite marks all up my legs, you see, when I wear shorts. And Miles said, "You need vitamin B1. And I've taken vitamin B1. I won't show you my leg. It's not a pretty sight, but it's not being bitten, so it works. There we go. This is the outro to Food for Thought Radio.
There's a most accomplished fellow. He's the leader of the village choir, and his voice is warm and mellow. He drives a fruit cart around the street, and everybody knows it. He doesn't sing or rave about his fruit, he simply blows it. He's doing it all day long. It's better than any song. Though it isn't very pretty, you've got to admit it's cute. So all together let it go. Eat more fruit.
You have been listening to Fockham Hall with Eric Von Essex. Remember, whatever you do, have a bloody good laugh.
Thank you for joining us at Food for Thought Radio. No. Any minute now.
1, 2, 3. Cluck, cluck. Wake up your mind. Fill up your day. Oink, oink. Smart little bites that brighten your way. You're listening to Food for Thought Radio here at FFTradio.com. Food for Thought Radio here at FFTradio.com.
And we've just said goodbye to Food for Thought Radio, and we're still carrying on Rumble, YouTube, Holy Land Radio FM, and Telegram, I believe. And Facebook, and Uncle Tom Cobley and all. And so thank you very much, Food for Thought Radio. We'll carry on for a little while longer. And now, is this now? Oh, by the way, Matilda says, "Hi, Miles. Yes, it's good to have you on the show. And one day, hopefully in the future, we'll try and sort of iron out the technical difficulties. There often is sort of technical difficulties, and because there's so many platforms now, you get a bit muddled up, and that when the Food for Thought Radio, that actually comes in automatically. So I don't press anything; it just comes in the end of their part, you know, and it comes. What's happened? Oh, no, that's okay. The connection's rejoined again. There we are, and we haven't had that many technical difficulties tonight, but apparently I think we lost connection with Rumble. I don't know. We still live? I think we are. Yes. It's reconnecting. No, still okay. Everything seems to be okay. Yes. Anyway, we'll carry on regardless. And was it? Are you down? He said, Miles has said, "What's this now? You are down with the kids." Am I really? Right. Here we go. Now, I'm not sure if we're still broadcasting. I think we are. We should be. Yes. Anyway, Steve, what I was going to say is your career. I mean, we've all had careers in all different directions until we found our calling in life. And it's surprising, I mean, between you and I don't think I was fully cut out for architecture. And can I be brutally honest, for the army, even though you probably enjoyed it whilst you was in there?
Well,
because,
go on. Sorry, mate.
Well, because now you're a square peg. I became a square peg. And this is the thing. You sort of, I don't know, I think you mature. We all a bit like cheese. We all sort of mature after a while. And you had to go through that experience, the army, to be where you are now. I had to go through the experiences that I had to be where I am now.
Yeah.
And there's lots of us that started off in a completely different career. And then suddenly, I mean, if I could go back, say, 20 or 30 years, I'd have probably got into holistic health and natural health and that type of stuff. I wouldn't have gone into I'm rather interested in that. Especially, by the way, on YouTube, there's a channel called Survival Steve. It's nothing to do with you, is it, Steve? Nothing at all, even though he sounds a bit like you.
He actually looks like me as well, like a handsome and younger version. But
by the way, I've got my stockpile of cling film. Did you see that? You got a stockpile cling film, because if anybody has their chest open up or anything like that, you can seal it out with cling film.
Right, yeah.
I can't quite see the logic of stockpiling cling film. I mean, is that a sort of a?
Yeah, it's got a few medical kind of applications.
Yes.
So yeah, it's definitely worth having a roll in a medical kit. I mean, I used to carry cling film in a med kit.
Really?
Yeah, it's good for burns as well. Use it for burns. You can use it for strapping, as a makeshift bandage, even conforming bandage. Loads of uses.
Well, do you know something? You go into a drawing office years ago, you wouldn't see. I don't think you'd really see a medical kit. You wouldn't see a first aid kit. And we used razor blades, and we was always cutting ourselves. So when you cut yourself, all you did is you got a roll of toilet paper, wrapped it round, got your masking tape, wrapped it around, and that was it. That was your plaster. You carried on working, so you didn't get blood all over your drawing.
Yeah.
And that was it. And we did it all the time. And I think what's it? What we use now? We used to use something which the people say, "You use what?" It was crumbs. What was it now? It wasn't white spirit. It was something that we used to clean their drawing with, and we put that on it. It used to sting like hell, but it actually stopped it from bleeding. So, acetate. That was acetate. We used to put acetate on our cuts to seal them up.
Acetate. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, but that's brought tears to the eyes.
Backside up to your belt. Yeah, I mean that. And we had an Egyptian secretary in once, and I cut my finger, and she went, "You put acetate on the finger?" I said, "Yeah." And I was wrapping it around the toilet. She almost fainted. I just sort of wrapped it because we was always cutting ourselves. We just got used to it. And she, you got no sticky plaster? Nah, don't bother with that. Just use to drop the old masking tape. That'll do. But then it is not hygienic. The toilet paper, well, I'm still here, and I really so couldn't dummy them. But no, actually. Toilet paper is a very useful thing, not only for toilet paper. You can use it for all kinds of bleeding things. And anyway, I think we've had a fantastic evening tonight, and I believe you're coming back soon, aren't you, on the show? We've got
if that's
Ben
all right.
tomorrow night talking about perfectly part of the team, mate. Now we've got Ben coming on tomorrow night, talking about missing scientists. So look underneath your beds, in your cupboards. There's any missing scientists around? You know, they might be there. You never know. They hang around. Cooey. You can tempt them out with a cucumber sandwich. You might get away with it. And I think you're on next. Let's have a look.
Yeah,
at the chart
something.
here.
Yeah, it's like the
I think
17th
you're
or something,
on-
isn't it?
What's today? 7th. Tomorrow, and then you're on. That's it. You're on the 15th.
Okay.
Because on the 14th we got Jerry Mowinski coming on with Helen, talking about demons.
Okay.
And you're on the 15th. Sorry, not 16th. The 15th you're on. And there's a Friday special that's still open. That's on the 19th. So that's still open.
Happy
But
days.
have you got anything planned for the 15th? Like survival or anything like that? Or cling film?
I'm open to suggestion. I mean, if you want to do survival, I could get some props together. I could even do medical survival. You know, that was something I was pretty well qualified up in.
Really?
I mean, if that's something of interest, survival medicine.
Now that's interesting. Now, I don't know. Shall we put it to the vote? Shall we put a poll down, put it to the vote, what they want from you?
By all
and we can have a
means.
list like that, and we'll do the top vote. And I'd like to thank everybody for being on the show tonight. Aunt Sally, who's really been in the bath, but she's saying that thank you, lads. Apologies, I've not been in the chat. Been a taxi mum tonight, listening whilst driving.
Oh,
Not in the
brilliant.
bath. So I understand, yeah. Thank you, everybody, for coming on the show. Please join us tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, and that will be with Ben Emlyn Jones, and there may be another guest along with him talking about missing scientists. And there's also generally a guest on the Paul English show on Thursdays at 8 o'clock. And then next Sunday, we'll have Dr. Malvinsky on, who was a psychiatrist in the American prison service, who discovered that, what is it now? What these people can hear voices. Come on, brain. Schizophrenics
Okay.
are actually hearing voices. So thank you very much, everybody. Remember to go on to chat the Telegram channel, log into Steve's channel, and also Holy Land Radio, because Patrick's on there as well. Now your channel is
I share with Nathan Lucius, which is the Occult Academy. I also do Survive the Apocalypse with Survival Steve, both on Telegram. So please, if you, I've been away actually teaching survival the last week, so I haven't put much on it, both of those channels. So I'm a bit behind.
In Wales. Now if it was in Wales, I've got a little survival advice there. Take an umbrella. Was it wee-weeing with rain when you was in Wales?
Yes, I've had a good couple of days. Luckily the course itself was beautiful weather, but afterwards, yeah, it was pretty torrential. But it's a brilliant part of the neighbourhood for sure.
And what did you cover in this course? Because I believe you're doing another course soon, aren't you, in Wales?
I've done a number of things, from survival kits to first aid to what else? I covered shelter construction, fire lighting, all the usual, all the classics.
Because it's like the old joke, isn't it? You know, you with a broken nose. Why don't you entertain us by playing the piano? I ain't got a broken nose. Oh, yes, sorry. But no, so you do all that. I mean, I believe the food is absolutely delicious, isn't it?
Oh yeah. It's worth it just for the food alone. The food is first rate. All cooked on open fires. cast iron pots and what have you.
all inclusive. And I believe when's the next one coming up?
Possibly in July, the latter half of July, I believe.
Excellent.
It's
And
TBC.
when's the next one coming up?
When?
Mhm.
The next one in Wales
Right,
is
so
the end of July.
what website do you go on to? And
If-
what
so-
website do you go on to? mark it
Yeah.
up?
So if anyone's interested, have a look at www.carycoid.com, I believe. So CURU.
Could you spell that?
Sorry, CARUCOED. Carycoid.
Kerry Coed. So I'll go after the show. We'll put a questionnaire on the Telegram channel, and we'll ask people what subject you would like you to cover when you next come on the show. And I know what I like to cover is the equipment. I'm a bit of an equipment
Oh, right, yeah.
enthusiast, you know. So I'm the soppy sod that I'd probably turn up with a great big backpack on. You go, oh God, no. You know? Do you get those? Over equipped, everything but the kitchen sink with them.
Generally the opposite, to be fair, but
Really, they're
Yeah.
not equipped very well.
yeah, like you're not brought a waterproof jacket. What, in Wales?
And also, you got dangerous sheep there, haven't you? You might get headbutt by a sheep or something, or a ram, or that. Do you do walking trials and things like that? Do you do walks and things?
I've done little foraging walks on this one I was just on. Nothing too taxing, or too far. But yeah, I've done little navigation exercises. Nothing too taxing or challenging. But I mean, if anyone's interested in being put through the mill, I'm more than happy to make it a little bit more adventurous. If anyone's interested.
Oh, that's interesting. Do you ever go to anywhere other than Wales, like sort of how to survive Milton Keynes or something, or Bognor?
Yeah, I've been a number of places. To be fair, doing survival isn't very lucrative nowadays. It doesn't have a very large market or a large appeal. I mean, probably a lot of people might be interested in watching things on the likes of YouTube, but when it comes to actually doing things in a practical nature, it's kind of dying off a lot. But having said that, I'm doing some one-to-one survival tuition in the Northeast in the next few weeks. So, I'll go anywhere.
Do you show people how to make these things, which I won't say, starting with T and ending in pult?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I suppose you can say catapult. Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with catapult.
It's a great little survival hunting weapon.
Yes, and things like that. Anyway, thank you, Steve. And remember what his site. You better spell it again. Your website. The website.
Oh, it's not mine. It's under a fellow called Tom Roberts. It's called Carycoid. Carycoid, which is CARUCOED, and I believe it means the love of the woods. It's Welsh for the love of the woods.
.com, is it?
Possibly. I can't remember off the top of my head.
With a word like that, I think you're going to find this website anyway.
It's on Facebook, that's for sure.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us on the show. Thank you, Dr. Miles Fleetwood, as well. I hope to see you on here one day. Be great. And remember, whatever happens, please put your thumbs up and please consider subscribing. It's worth subscribing. And why not visit us on our Steve's Telegram channel or my Telegram channel. Details are below here. And also on my Facebook channel, which is, again, got quite a few members on it now. And whatever happens, have a bloody good laugh.